I've been wanting to start a new channel for a while and kind of have a discussion about general things that come across my radar. And I thought now would be a good time to start. I've been keeping up with the information that's coming out about Contrapoints and the cancellation. And I've kind of been waiting for her to put a video out about that to get the full picture of what's going on. And so, I've got some thoughts on that. I've noticed, and at first I want to say, I'm cis, female, she, her pronouns. Uh, I consider myself an ally for transgender people, non-binary people, the full spectrum of minority groups, um, that are out there, and even outside of that. I have a general perspective that people should just be able to do what they want as long as they're not hurting anyone, do no harm, and that we should have the respect to accept people as they are. So that's just kind of a general look at my perspective. But as being that that's the case, I'm going to stay in my lane. I'm not going to get into a lot about the content of the tweets. I think that Natalie did a wonderful job of that, and I don't, of course, know her. She doesn't know I exist, and but I do really enjoy the channel, and I think what she does is very important. I also think that what she does may, it has inflamed some people in various groups. Um, and it may not be the people that you think. I wanted to make this video because I have some experience around determining the authenticity of accounts. I used to work for a very large internet-based company, and so I want to offer some insight there. Uh, when scrutinizing sources, of course, if you don't have the back-end tools from the platform, there's no definitive way to be sure of anything. So my aim here, my goal is that I tell people what to look out for, and just be cautious when, considering sources, considering new information. I think that that can be helpful for navigating online for any issue. And I but I want to caution that there's no way to be, of course, sure of who you're talking to online. In any case, you never know unless you know the person personally. So it's very easy to have accounts that aren't what they say they are. Sock puppet accounts, phishing, spoofing, all of those things I've worked with for a long time. And so I have some experience with, reviewing authenticity. However, I also had the back-end tools of the platform to do that. So when scrutinizing sources, you don't want to go on a witch hunt and make accusations. You don't want to harass people under any circumstances. No harassment. I do not advocate for that. I do not condone that. And just consider the source. Just when you're getting information and you're not sure who's created it or who's providing it, then you want to make sure to consider your sources and whether or not you believe what they're saying. And that's basically the gist of it. I think that's important for anyone online. And I think that, I don't know, at least in the beginning, and I've been online pretty much since there's online. Uh, no, but over the past 20 years, things have really picked up, and but I think that we've kind of, I think that we've kind of gotten comfortable, and perhaps it's time that we reset and remember that these things exist. Anyway, so in looking at the accounts that are making claims and the content of their claims as well, I'm seeing a lot of, in general, and if you want to really get into the details of the criticisms, the tweets, what have you, I recommend that you watch Contrapoints video, of course. She goes into that very in depth, and she has, of course, the most experience with this. So I would recommend, going and watching that video. However, in my view, what I've seen, I'm seeing a lot of vague attacks, and when comparing the content of those messages to how the facts have been laid out, they're twisting a lot of information. They're making associations. Like I said, you've got to watch that video to know. I'm seeing a lot of exaggeration, a lot of twisting and contorting of points, and it's a mess. And it appears to me to have an expressed intent to damage her reputation or cancel Contrapoints. And so I question that intent. Now, people who are legitimately upset about what happened, my heart goes out to you. And I think that her apologies were, well made. And, watch the video if you haven't. I really recommend that you watch the video. If you don't want to watch the video and it upsets you to think about it, then I encourage you to step away and just stop talking about it. Stop thinking about it. Sometimes you just have to do that for self-care. You just have to. And I'm a very compassionate person, a very empathetic person, and I feel badly for anyone that's hurt. However, I do think that there are other people. There are probably small group of people. I can't say how many, but I think there are some folks out there that are fanning the flames with the intent to damage the platform, to damage her reputation, to cancel her, silence her. That's usually the intent of attacks like that, is to silence and to disparage cancel culture as a whole. There are people that feel very threatened by cancel culture, and generally they are people that are more right-wing politically, and they have malintent. They're not who they say they are. There are people like that exist in these accounts, and I'm quite certain of it. Although I can't be 100% sure because, again, I don't have the back-end tools. But I did have a lot of experience with assessing accounts. So, again, if you do feel like you are interacting with someone who's using a sock puppet account, I recommend that you use the platform to report it, to evaluate it. I actually don't know if that's an option on Twitter. It is on Facebook. But there's so many platforms now that, I can't speak to all of them, of course. But, or step away. Don't engage with them. Block them. That's what I do. I block them. I've got zero time for that. But engaging with them will be difficult. These are not people that can be swayed. They have an agenda. And that's it. For people that can be swayed and interacting at most online engagement, I recommend a video by, let's see, what's her name? Megan Phelps-Roper, and if you may recognize the name Phelps, she was a member of the Westboro Baptist Church. I use that term loosely. It might be more of a cult, actually, but she left after engaging with people online, actually, and she grew up within that church. And so it's very compelling, her message, her TED Talk. I'll link it in the description along with several other sources, because I've kind of pulled together all my sources and all my experience to, give my perspective on this. And again, this is my perspective, no one else's. So, but anyway, 4 major points that Megan Phelps-Roper goes over in her TED Talk is: don't assume bad intent. It's kind of going against what once you've kind of assessed them and you feel like that they're an actual reachable person, don't assume bad intent. If you think that this is just an agitator, a sock puppet, a troll, block them and move on with your life. Just do that. I really recommend that. And again, no, I do not condone harassment or witch hunts. But don't assume bad intent when engaging with others online that you feel like you can have a respectful conversation with. Ask questions. That makes people feel heard, and it also helps you to understand them and their perspective, which is very important. Stay calm. Don't flip out and start ranting, and make your argument. Make a concise argument in a respectful way. I'll link that video because those are just the 4 main tips, but there's really a lot of valuable information in that video, and I wanted to mention that. When you're assessing or scrutinizing sources for validity, it's, this is kind of a gray area. So you want to, be very cautious. Again, I can't say that enough. When I was watching the Contrapoints video, it kind of started throwing off red flags for me, actually, because I started noticing trends, and that a lot of people have pointed out since I've been visiting Twitter since the video came out. They've been pointing out there's a lot of anime characters or anime avatars, and that's true, and that's a trend. I see a pattern there. However, a lot of people like anime, so please don't just go attacking people just because they have an anime avatar. Don't go attacking people, period. But if they have that type of avatar, that's not a red herring. Actually, none of this is. It can just be tips to be cautious and maybe not take the information so seriously. There are other patterns to look for, and again, you can't be 100% sure, and having experience with this certainly helps to assess, but again, you can't be absolutely sure. So anytime, keep this in mind anytime you're engaging online, ask yourself questions. How well do you know the source? Are they accurate? Do they have an agenda? And that's an important question to ask, because then you'll notice that no matter what you say to them, they're not going to change, and they'll continue to obfuscate. They'll continue to kind of twist things around to suit their argument, to suit their perspective. They're not going to engage in rational conversation with you. So red flags can be patterns, like another thing that I've noticed and first we have to kind of step back and say, okay, who's doing this? Who would be interested in deplatforming Contrapoints? Who do you think that would be? She's been very vocally critical of the alt-right, of people that maybe identify as fascists, or have fascist tendencies, or whether they identify as that or not. So, so what are some of the things that fascists like? Violence. That's something that kind of differs from people on the left in general, although, again, it is not a red herring. This is not a black and white issue. This is a gray issue. And with interacting online, when you're interacting online, you're going to run into a lot of gray area. So you never know for sure. But do they make threats like, what was that one in the video? A fully wound slap to the face. Is that how that went? Slap to the mouth. A fully wound slap to the mouth. That was a little bit of a red flag for me, because typically people on the left aren't violent. They don't speak violently. Now, that doesn't always apply. But again, it's a pattern. It's a pattern to go, that could mean something. So here's one. Racism. So if you see any accounts connected to racist accounts, or accounts making racist tweets, or posts or comments, that can also be a bit of a red flag. Although, again, not a black and white issue, not a red herring. However, I noticed that when going into these comments, I will check like who likes it, who liked that comment, because you can click on that, and see who is liking the comment. And the majority of them are people that identify as non-binary or identify in these various minority groups. But there are some that don't, that just have, regular things. Okay, so that doesn't mean anything in and of itself. But when those accounts are, reposting racist material, reposting things that you typically see on the right, and I'm not going to, show any screen captures or anything. I've got them, but I'm not showing them because I'm not here to call anyone out. I'm here just to give an overall some general tips, some general information. So you can look at different data points, like who's liking them, who's following them, what are they tweeting, what are they posting, what are they liking, and a pattern emerges among a network, and you see that people that are following and liking them may not share the same interests as them, or as they are, claiming to share. Sock puppet accounts, exist. It's a real thing, and they can create an image that they belong to a various minority group or whatever, and not actually be part of that group. They're fake, they're posing. They want to sow discontent. They want to disrupt, infiltrate, and destroy a group. This is, smear campaigns are real. That happens at various levels. It can happen in your personal life. I've experienced such things, and this is where I'm staying in my lane. This is based on experience that I've had, abuse that I've experienced, and people online bullying people and trying to shut them up, trying to silence them. That is abuse. That is a form of abuse. They try to bully people into silence, and it works. It's very successful. It's very successful, especially when that criticism is coming within your own group. It's very effective. And if you have much experience with internet, you know that people can have multiple accounts, and they can, you can be anyone you want online. So when creating these accounts, it would be easy for me to create an account, pretend to be a Republican. I'm very, I like to follow politics, and of course I'm left leaning. But I could go on, pretend to be a Republican, start sharing Ben Shapiro and other garbage, and and yes, it's garbage, and pretend, and even insert myself into those spaces and pretend to be someone I'm not. Kind of like, did you hear about the woman, the Russian, the red hair that was in the NRA? That sort of thing. She kind of fooled everybody, right? I don't know her name. But anyway, that is kind of an example of that happening in real life. Although I don't know the details, maybe it's not a good example. But yeah, you'll see patterns emerge in things that they've liked, things that they've shared. You can go on their account and see their likes. But I recommend diving into the likes on their posts, especially the posts that are negative for Contrapoints, because there are people that are trying to inflate interest around that, inflate support. So there are right-leaning accounts liking these tweets, and it's not like they especially care about binary people or their position. They don't care about any of us. No, they care about themselves. And no, that's a generalization. Not everyone, of course. And I don't like to speak in generalizations. I want to be factual as much as possible. So dive into their likes, dive into who liked this tweet, and scroll through. You're going to see a lot of like supporters, but you're also going to see, or you're likely to see accounts that would not normally be in support of non-binary people. Let's just put it that way. They're not in support of trans people. They're not in support of LGBTQIA plus groups. They're not. They, you've interacted with them. Especially if you belong to that group, you really know. So, why would they do that? I think they would do that to, again, silence Contrapoints. I think that's the goal, to take it down. They want it gone, canceled. It doesn't benefit anyone from the LGBTQ community to cancel her, to cancel Contrapoints. She's been a very important advocate in left-leaning groups. She's been a very important voice and a brilliant creator, and we can't lose that. We can't. We need to support her. We need to circle the wagons and support her. So I realize this is a complicated issue, and there are people that are legitimately hurt, and I want to preface that again. And I think that in those situations, I think that it would be best, and I've had things that upset me before in my past, and well, probably tomorrow, and I'll be blocking some people, I'm sure. That's all right though. I don't care if they like me. I don't care. But for a self-care perspective, just mute that term, block it, move on, get on with your life. But for people that are commenting, and I've been checking out a lot, and they're saying in the comments, they're saying, I muted Contrapoints, but I wonder what the discourse is around that. Why are you tweeting that? I mean, why could that be? And share your thoughts, but I'm pretty sure that it's so that other people will hop on and trash her. That was just bait. So, there are observers on the sidelines that may have not felt particularly targeted by this, but they feel like they need to be an ally to non-binary people, and or they were pressured, because I saw in the video, and you'll notice a theme if you watch it again, another theme, and it's not apologize. It's not saying, Contrapoints apologize, or, will you ask Contrapoints to reconsider this position? It's, will you disavow her as a friend? Will you apologize for being friends with her? And I mean, it's obvious pressure. It's pressure for them to take a stand, for them to reject, to disrupt, to divide, to fracture that base, that circle of support, to isolate her. That's a common tactic. Isolation. If you've ever experienced abuse from someone with a personality disorder, perhaps, I'm not a professional, so I can't say whether or not someone is, has a cluster B personality disorder. I can't say these things, but I've experienced it. I know I have. I know what I've experienced. I know. And some manipulative tactics they use is isolation. So they want to kind of divide and conquer. Another manipulative tactic they use is pressure, to do something immediately, to rush to judgment. Don't think, do it. I've experienced that too. It's always always good to step back and take your time. Take as much time as you need. The great thing about the internet is that you can step away at any time and return when you have thought about a particular issue. That's something that Megan Phelps-Roper goes over in her TED Talk, which I really recommend. So that's a manipulative tactic to force someone to make a decision without having all the information. And good people fall for this. There are people that, in my experience, that have fallen for this. I don't know if I have, to be honest. I don't think that I have, but I can be kind of an asshole when it comes to someone trying to push me. That throws up a flag for me because, again, due to my experience. So I won't let them. I won't let them push me. I won't let them. I try to really pay attention for things that are manipulative, but it can be very covert. It can be very sly. Another tactic, and so on the topic of observers on the sideline. So observers on the sideline who fear being criticized themselves will be pressured to take a stance without having all of the information. And some of them will do that. They'll take that stance. And because individuals launching the attack, the reason that this is so successful is because people that are launching the attacks will make sure they appear as a victim or a victim's advocate. So it's called a pity play or a pity ploy. It's a very effective tactic for garnering sympathy and gaining support for people that have a nefarious agenda, who have they're bad actors. They are trying to force you to side with them, and they will appear injured, or they'll appear that they're advocating for someone that's injured. This is tricky. This gets very tricky. I recommend sources, lots of them. Do your research, get more familiar. But what I'm trying to, get across right now is just question. Don't just blindly believe stuff. Don't ever blindly believe stuff. But there's a great book called The Sociopath Next Door by Martha Stout. And no, I'm not saying that everyone criticizing Natalie is a sociopath. No. They might be flying monkeys. No, I'm kidding. But that's a thing. That's a thing that that people employ, that sociopaths employ. It's real, and it's a thing. You need to know about all this. I've spent my life very painfully learning about this stuff. I mentioned that I worked for a very large corporation, very large internet company. Dr. Robert Hare, a leading Canadian psychologist and expert on psychopathy, wrote a book called Snakes in Suits. I recommend that to everybody. I recommend it. I have some experience with that. I worked for a very large corporation, and I think the odds of encountering someone like that in a very large corporation, as Dr. Hare said, was 4 times more likely. So I've got some experience with that. Anyway, and on that topic, I'll just recommend Dr. Martha Stout. She's a great resource. Robert Hare, Dr. Robert Hare, Canadian psychologist, another great resource. Online on YouTube, Dr. Ramani Darvasala, I think I said that right. I'll probably put a little link in there. She talks about these issues quite in depth. She's very experienced. She focuses a lot on narcissism and calls narcissism the secondhand smoke of mental health, and I think that is brilliant. So please check her out. Also, I happen to really love Dr. Todd Grande. Dr. Todd Grande. He's fantastic, and he did a video, released a video about conspiracy theories. So I really recommend watching that and decide if you think that I'm just being conspiratorial. I'm sure some will. I know better though. Like I said, I've got years of experience with this. So anyway, check out all those resources. Arm yourself with information. Learn as much as you can. It's a crazy world out there. So back on to the pity ploy or the pity play. This is good for getting unknowing good people involved, and also getting them to attack a victim. So there are well-meaning people involved in this too that are trying to be an ally to people. And so, not everyone criticizing is, acting in bad faith. They may just be caught up in the mess of it all. So, it's difficult to know because the attacker is going to intentionally twist information and enlist others to attack the victim too. This is sometimes referred to as flying monkeys, and it's a crazy term, from Wizard of Oz. It doesn't really lend a lot of and this is not, official psychological, this is not an official term. You're not going to find this in the DSM-5. You're not going, this is more a language that has been developed by people that have experienced, they've experienced this type of abuse. And one of those channels, Inner Integration, great channel if you want to get the perspective of someone who has experienced it. But if you want actual, factual information, then you want to go to Dr. Todd Grande. He really bases everything that he says in fact, in terms of someone who actually is a psychologist. Anyway, and this is a bit off the grid too. Something else that I've heard about and experienced is a technique called DARVO, deny, attack, reverse victim, and offender. And I heard about this probably about a year ago, and I was like, that. I mean, I can think of real life scenarios where that's happened, but you got to be careful. You got to tread carefully, because this is kind of a, I don't know. I don't know how well documented this is. So I found a source with a professor at the University of Oregon, and they put together a page, and then they reference, and I didn't even see this until today, but they reference a video put out by South Park like last November. And in it, they described the DARVO technique. I think it was November 7th is when the video aired, and I recommend checking that out too. So deny, attack, reverse victim, and offender is a very effective maneuver for, attackers appearing as the victim again. And so what brings this to mind in this scenario is if there are really sock puppet accounts, and of course I can't not prove this definitively, of course, but if there are, then it would be a very effective maneuver for a DARVO attack, a DARVO kind of scenario, because as an alt-right member, as a right-wing fascist, it's hard to feel sympathy for them. And it would be hard for them to, she's attacking us. But if they were to pose as a minority group, that would be very effective, wouldn't it? So that came to mind, but then again, this was just my general experience. This is not what most people would probably take away watching her video. I've seen some people throwing around the assertion online that she is provoking attacks, or that she's trying to get her fans to attack people, and no, that was not anywhere in the video. You're really stretching there to come up with that. So and with people that are again using the pity ploy or the pity play, whatever you want to call it, I call it pity ploy. They're going to be the most outspoken because they're working to control the narrative. They're working to say, hey, this is the truth. This is what happens. And they're going to scream the loudest, and they're going to say the most. And when you engage with them, they're going to usually work very hard to steer the conversation away from a point, like say you jump in to point out how they're lying, that is a false thing that they have claimed, and they're going to work to skew the conversation and direct it some other direction. If you're not experienced with dealing with these people, walk away. Just walk away. Speaking of walk away, walk away is a right. That was a hashtag walk away. A right-leaning campaign with this actor Brandon somebody. He claims, and he's I believe he's gay, and people on the right wing love to get their token people. They love to have a token gay man. And so his campaign was that he walked away from the Democratic Party and joined the Republican Party. Why, I don't know. Well, I do know. He's getting a check. He's been very successful. I mean, not as an actor, but as a right-wing pundit or whatever. He's had a career, just like Dave Rubin. There's a lot of resources in the right wing, and they can't win with their ideas, so their policies are horrible for minorities, for working class, for things like that. So they try to distract from their policies and attack, identity politics, and that happens on the left too. I mean, the left is definitely not without you know, they deserve some criticism too, and I've done a lot to criticize that. But not right now. I'm focused on one thing. So, I see people in their tweets refusing to watch Contrapoints, refusing to watch the video, but yet still talking about it, still trashing her. Be very suspect of that, because if they're not willing to consider new information, if they're like, this is my perspective and I'm not changing that. Often that's done by people that have an agenda. Not always. Some people are just unreceptive. Some people are too emotionally attached to their point of view to pursue any other or to consider any other. I understand that. Unfortunately, those people are stuck. They're just stuck in a place where they can't move forward. And it is what it is. Engaging with them may not be the best thing to do. It may not be fruitful. But I do want to remember something that Natalie had said. Okay, this is not an exact quote, but I do want to remember something that was said in the video, and it was that people who seem ignorant or hateful need non-judgmental space to learn, grow, and think. And to just condemn them as hateful bigots actually prevents that growth from happening. And that's just like the general idea. That's not an exact quote. But that's absolutely true. I don't know about you, but I've held ideas that were not perfect, that definitely needed to evolve. And I did. And I grew as a person. I've made an effort to do that. And, you know, not everyone realizes they need to make that effort. Sometimes they need a helping hand. Sometimes they need a compassionate ear and a patient person on the other end of that conversation. So I recommend that you patiently interact with people online, but also realize that some folks may have other intentions, and they may be right-wing, they may be alt-right trolls, they may be trying to weaponize cancel culture and create a circular firing squad, to have people on the same side attacking each other. And that would be great if for them, if they could destroy cancel culture because they feel threatened by it, if they could cause the left to implode and have their dear leader reelected or whatever. But they can't win on their ideas. They can't win on their policies. So they have to win on bullshit. And this is the kind of things that they do. So stay vigilant and keep an open heart and open mind and support each other. But know when to walk away too. Thanks for watching.